Blessings, brothers and sisters on earth. It's Lori Ann Spagna here with you today to celebrate a bit today the triple Stargate portal, the 777, only true, real triple Stargate portal is open. And that is very exciting. Why is the triple Stargate portal open? This particular portal of 7-7 happens during the Cancer moon window. In other words, astrological window of Cancer during the month of June and July. And Cancer season just began, oddly enough, on the summer-winter solstice on June 21st. And so it is officially open. Lightworkers know this language. They know these appointments based in numerology and astrology, just a time-space marker for consciousness to come together and unify. So that's how we know this triple Stargate portal is open. It's very exciting for humanity. Let me say a few reasons why and what's in store, which I think is really, truly quite positive, but has its shadow aspects as well, of course, as all things do in the experience of the game of duality. So we completed at the end of May, we completed the first part of the eclipse cycle of the year of 7. And for most of us, that eclipse cycle was quite intense. It was a completion of the scorpionic energies, and it was designed to be quite intense. Scorpio in and of itself is intense. And then we just had the beautiful solstice just this week, summer-winter solstice on the 21st, to sort of bring things to a kind of beautiful new level of consciousness, a higher, purer octave, where what that means is that more of humanity has leveled up as a collective. That means more of humanity has collectively chosen to become more conscious and to do more, engage more, either through thought, belief, action, word, deed, etc., in more pure frequencies, higher frequency consciousness, you see, by choosing to be more aligned with pure frequencies. They are choosing expansion, which means the choice to expand is a choice to align with the light, whether they're consciously aware of it or not. Most people are not yet, and they don't really understand that. So, and that's okay, right? That's part of the consciousness shifting. That's part of coming into more consciousness. So this eclipse season that we just completed in May then was quite successful from the perspective of the light, for it brought people into this higher octave where they were more willing, where they are now as a collective overall, more willing, more consciously willing to expand into greater consciousness and to become more light-filled, light-embodied. So even the average Joe, that terminology, who kind of watches sports and watches violence on TV, and not that there's anything wrong with those things, please. I'm just trying to paint a picture of, your average person who kind of goes to work every day and comes home and watches mainstream media and still engages in, what I call fear porn. I'm not the only one who calls it that, right? On the chronic negativity networks. And you know what that stands for. Those people are still on some level choosing to be here because they're physically embodied, and to some degree are choosing maybe in their consciousness just to know more, to be willing to expand into greater light. And greater light means the expansion of consciousness and a purer frequency bandwidth with less density, less heaviness, less gravity, less constriction, less conformity. Right? Those are aspects of the shadow, right? Constriction, conformity. unconsciousness, darkness, etc. Okay, so this new octave, which I spoke about in the last series, called the 7-7 triple, prepare for the 7-7-7 triple portal Stargate. It's in one of the most recent emails. This up leveling has just now brought us into a new octave overall as a collective. For the most part, this is wonderful. Every time humanity as a collective levels up into a new octave, that means there is more light overall. There is more room for expansion. There is more room for growth. This does sometimes, this does almost every time, in general, also increase the obviousness of the dark. What do I mean? The obviousness of the contrast, which is aspects of the dark, right? So it increases contraction, limitation, control, domination, manipulation, because we become more consciously aware of what has been there all along. We can see the contrast with even more clarity. So this is very important to understand. When people think, and this is all, I'm going to explain how this is all related to the 777 triple Stargate portal being open now, so please stay with me. People tend to think, very oftentimes, they tend to think that because there is more darkness showing up on the planet, that they get discouraged by this. And it gets very, it is concerning. And when I say darkness in this case, I mean those very things: control, trying to take away freedoms, trying to take away liberties, trying to take away rights, whether it's the right to do something to your body, whether it's the right to go where you want to go, whether it's the right to think what you want to think, whether it's the right to read what you want to read, whether it's the right to, take things out of schooling systems that are taught, whatever it is, however that shadow aspect plays out, it is some form of control, domination, manipulation, secrecy, coercion, and it escalates when more light shows up. So I would invite you, and I'll link this again into 777, I would invite you to see that as a sign that the light is increasing, because what it means is that more people are able to see what has been hidden, secret, or coercive, or manipulative in the past that we were living with and did not see. And even what we were living with and what we allowed in the past, that ideally, going through the 777 triple Stargate portal, we will not so much allow going into the future. Now, this is the question up for humanity. This is the big question of the 777 triple Stargate portal. So understand, part of the Ascension journey is, in truth, is in restoring the free will choice for humanity to have the right to choose what we will think, what we will believe, what we will buy into, what we will give our power, consent, and authority to, what we will allow into our reality. You see, we are all gatekeepers. We are all gatekeepers. We are the gatekeepers of our consciousness. And so, by choosing to be the gatekeepers of our consciousness in a conscious way, this is what the gift is of free will, right? And that is what is being restored. This is why this so-called shadow aspects, this dark, this old agenda that we've been living with for eons of time, is being brought to the light and is playing out on Earth as humans are given choice. Humans are being given choice to decide and choose. That does not mean that humans necessarily will succeed at denial or carpet sweeping, which is what many humans have done. So this is the epitome of the 777 triple Stargate portal. Let me explain. And I want to say, as I always I always do and have done for many, many years, probably have been doing this, 15 years, always on the triple Stargates. I always do a DNA activations webinar. It is not a basic meditation. It is not a basic DNA activations. It is a full-on channeled event where we are bringing in consciousness from beings of light and beings in the so-called higher realms. We say higher realms, but what we really mean is more purified, less density, where their consciousness is somewhat more, purified is a better way to say it. They just aren't carrying a lot of that. They're beyond what I call the structure, the egoic structure or the inertia of fourth dimensional and even fifth dimensional bandwidth. So that is what we are working on purifying for ourselves. So this 777 triple Stargate portal will be working towards that. So on that portal, that is when we will be doing our very next DNA activations webinar. And as I was saying, we do channeling with these beings. These calls are typically approximately about 3 hours. They have gone longer, although I'm doing my best to keep them to 3 hours. Typically the first hour and a half is where we're understanding what's happening, more of what's happening on Earth, more of what's going on, and especially what the codes are that we'll be getting and what those codes and how they will change us. It is amazing. That first hour and a half, we learn so much. There's a lot of channeling that comes in from whether they're star beings or angelics, or sometimes it's Gaia, Sophia herself, who's speaking about what she's going through. Sometimes it's the consciousness of various planets, planetary bodies, how to navigate the changes in astrology or astrological or astronomical changes going on. Sometimes, very oftentimes, there's animals or animal consciousness that comes in that wants to share their wisdom and insights with us. Sometimes it's various ascended masters. In fact, always we have some of all of them. Many beings come in. And of course, the star families, if I didn't say that, ascended masters, divine goddesses, who are also, in their own right, ascended masters. All of these beings serve the light and serve the expansion of consciousness, because that is the only beings I work with. I do not work directly with anyone who does not serve the light, which is serving essentially the agenda of the divine, which is to help humanity expand consciousness and up level into higher, purer octaves if they so choose. Those of us who participate in these DNA activation webinars are choosing that consciously. So we get all of this incredible insight and information from these beings. And we do that mostly in the first hour and a half, but also comes in the second hour and a half of the call, when we actually go into a full-on meditation and healing process. When we say healing, we're talking about a transformation of energy and consciousness. During the second part, when we get the activations, we receive the activations and the transmissions that are basically there to support us in our awakening journey. So I've been doing this for many, many years. I always do it on the triple Stargate portal. The triple Stargate portals every year. Last year was the 666. Next year will be the 888. This year is the 777. So, and I also tend to do them, I always do them on the Lionsgate portal. Those are slightly different energetically because they tend to have more to do, slightly more with star family races, whereas the triple Stargate portal is more divinely aligned in the sense that it is about humanity's, they're both about humanity's. Anyway, you know what, I don't want to get too digressed about the difference, but, and then I typically do them again, usually on the 1111 for people who really want to ascend into their mastery. They're always different. Every time I do them, typically over 75% of the people who come to these calls are people who come over and over and over again because they're so good and they're so enlightening and there's so much information and consciousness shifting energy. If you haven't joined us, I hope you will. Of course, you can register at LoriSpagna.com. I will put the link in this recording area. But you go to LoriSpagna.com under live events and you'll see speed activations, DNA, sacred key code, and star code marking activations. Over the years, we have gotten a lot more than just those. We get divine template upgrades and transmissions and divine virtue activations to help awaken the higher virtues in us. And I've spoken about them in many, many podcasts and interviews that I've done. So I just want to stick with the conversation about the 777 so you can understand more. But I hope you will join us for that. Again, it's at LoriSpagna.com. Under the live events tab, you'll see the link for that. And you can register and join us for speed activations, DNA activations, dormant DNA activations, sacred key code, star code marking, and really it's awakening consciousness from within us, and also simultaneously working with our DNA to really repair our DNA. Because, of course, anyone who's listened to me long enough, you know that there's a lot of corrupted stuff in there too that needs to be cleared out. And this leads me into part of the conversation about 777, because what's so amazing, more than anything, I have learned so much from people who have been born in the month of 7. And the reason I've learned is that 7 can be a number that has the capacity to bring forward great enlightenment. But oftentimes there is a price to pay, and that is the price of the shadow. Right? One has to be willing to become conscious and use discernment and reveal, in a sense, be willing to see and shed the shadow. This is the epitome of 7 to me. The beautiful, glorified side of 7 is the really elevated side is dignity and grace and diplomacy. Oftentimes, people who are born in the month of 7 are quite good at that. They have that. Sometimes they're learning it or cultivating it. Sometimes they support others in working through that. This is beautiful. And oftentimes 7 people are some form of, potentially some form of a whistleblower or some form of truth exposer. And this is also really a beautiful, uplifted, sort of eloquent, light aspect of the 7, to expose truth, to bring forward grace, to bring forward dignity, to especially the light side of 7, to be diplomatic. We certainly could use diplomacy in our world at this time. There would be a wonderful, which we will be activating those codes of diplomacy, activating those codes and that light, those light frequencies of more divine grace. Those are light sides of the 7, more divine diplomacy, grace, and dignity, divine dignity. These are things that we need in our human reality, and we activate them in ourselves to anchor them into the physical world where they have not been demonstrated in the so-called shadow aspect that I talked about earlier of the physical world, so that more people will benefit from this kind of energy. But more than that, the fascinating contrast of the 7 is denial. Oh, one of the other things, if I didn't say, very important, of the light side of 7 is truth, exposing truth. I think I did say. So actually I did put a vid on my YouTube channel on the codes of divine truth that included the codes of divine integrity, which could be a light side of 7. It doesn't mean that a person born in 7 has these qualities, by the way. The month of 7, they may be lacking in these qualities entirely and attempting to cultivate them or learn them, or it may be the very thing they are missing and that they need most. They may be in some form of denial, right? So it doesn't automatically make that true, because you understand in numerology, the energy of a 7 has the light and the dark. Just like everything in the game of duality has the light and the dark. Part of the ascension journey is to integrate light and dark, shadow and light, duality, and all of its various forms to come into more unity. That is what we are working on. That is part of what I refer to as the ascension journey. That's part of it. So that's why we do these DNA activation webinars, because it helps us to do that so that we can properly ascend and so that we can understand through our free will choice what's going on. That's why I do these DNA activation webinars, and that's why I always choose a triple portal window to do them, because that's when us light workers understand that that's such an important time for this. So but the shadow side of 7 is denial. The shadow side of 7 is a lack of discernment, true discernment. The shadow side of 7 is lies. The ability to lie and be or dishonest or deceitful and be comfortable with that. Many 7 people I have known very well are excellent deceivers, liars, manipulators, even to their own selves. And so, because they're working on integrating these aspects, so on a soul level. So that does not make them bad or wrong. This is just part of our journey out of the game of duality and into the game of unity. So we all get to carry these aspects, right? Now, the shadow side is a lack of peace, a lack of dignity, a lack of grace, a lack of integrity, a lack of honesty, a missing of these things. Also the willingness to sort of be a carpet sweeper or be in some form of denial, or the willingness, consciously or unconsciously, to not know or not necessarily be truthful or honest. Now, why is this so relevant to the 777 portal? Because this is what will play out. These themes will play out for the balance of the year. They have already been playing out in a less obvious way to us. Although it's definitely coming to the surface even more. Wow, disclosure is on, isn't it? Disclosure is happening. 7 is an excellent year for disclosure. On my most recent predictions webinar that I did at the end of last year, I always do those in December, towards the end of the year. In that predictions webinar, we talked about how disclosure would come out. We talked about how the extreme corruption, which used to be in the circles that would have been formally identified as, I'm going to sort of mask this word because I'd like to put this audio on YouTube. So just think con, and then think the word spire, and then add the words ACY to the end. This is because of the sadness of censorship, right? So obvious in a 7-year, the willingness to be unconscious translates as censorship, by the way. The willingness to carpet sweep in the public arena translates as censorship. Regardless of that, on my last predictions webinar, we talked about how those things would begin to be exposed this year. It will be heightened through the portal. The disclosure will become even more. That which used to be considered you got that word, is now just considered to be extreme corruption, right? Whistleblowers will begin to be more and more coming out. It will become more safe for them to come out. These are some of the things that we'll go into, but even beyond this. The reason I know these things, of course, is because I'm connecting with the higher realms where this stuff is already known. But this is the stuff of the 777 triple Stargate portal. It's very exciting, of course. It will be challenging for people who do not want to know. It will become more and more challenging for people to stay in the dark. It will become more and more constricting and conformative if people want to stay in the dark, right? It gets harder to do that. We saw this in the year of 2020 We can see it playing out. By the way, I'm in the state of Florida. I have a dear friend and her daughter who is in the schooling system or has been. And I'm hearing about some of the stuff that's being done in the schooling system that is sort of both aligned with the light, but also very much aligned with the dark. So there's the contrast of the attempt to allow for greater expansion while at the same time constricting contraction. It is fascinating to witness. So I would invite you all to shift your consciousness, if you haven't already, just to be a fascinated, curious observer of how it is all playing out, and to witness this expansion of consciousness playing out. It will be heightened in the month of 7 and through this portal, and then we will reach another window, of course, for the next, well, there's a series of windows that come up after it that serve different purposes. We'll talk about that more during our activations webinar and leading into the future, but it will culminate and then open new windows. As always, windows and portals open up because we're in an infinite game. This is an infinite game, and we're leaving the zero-sum game, in a sense, one where we just were in a closed system, where we just were playing Groundhog Day, looping patterns, right? Hopefully people are making the interchange. If they're not, they get to be sort of witnesses and sort of, to some degree, on their own level, spiritual bypassers, because they'll stay in their own states of various degrees of struggle or challenge, because you have to not just know it through the brain, of course, but embody it energetically. And so without the embodiment of the energy to positively uplift, there will always be some degree of constriction, contraction that invites more growth, invites more expansion. No problem either way. It's just how you want to go through this experience. In any case, it's fascinating. It's playing out. It's coming to peak time. It is the 7/7 triple portal that is open. It is going to be a very interesting game and dynamic. The question for you is, what side of the game do you want to play out on? You know, my goal is to be as much in the unity space as I can, but understand you cannot really truly be in the unity space until you integrate, invite in and integrate both aspects, shadow and light. Both are part of the divine. Both must integrate and resolve. They come into resolution. That is what I do. That is what I help people with, and their animals too. That is what I do in the sacred mentorships that I lead, the retreats that I lead, and of course in the upcoming DNA activations webinar, which once again, of course, will be on 7/7/7, the triple Stargate portal, where we work with the energy and the consciousness, the beings from on high, who support and assist us in our expansion into greater light, and support and assist us in holding and embodying more of the light and the light codes that support humanity in the global awakening journey. It is us who is making this happen in service to the light. That is what I do. And I'm inviting you to join me, because the more of us that join together, the more consciousness shifting in the more graceful, easy, beautiful, joyful, benevolent ways we can do it for ourselves and for one another, for the collective, because the free will choice is still here. And what we can do is anchor in the light and support and assist. But we cannot control it. So we just know by anchoring it in, we are the ones doing it. We are the ones leading the way. And we are the ones supporting and assisting the awakening journey, as others consciously get to choose. So we make it more clear for them to choose by bringing in and anchoring in more light. I hope you will join us. It is a brilliant, beautiful, magnificent call. I am so, one of my most prideful, I'm so proud of this DNA activations webinar. It has grown over the years We typically do get over 100 people, and we make magnificent change for the greater good, for humanity, for ourselves, and for one another. We come together in such an amazing sacred circle, so many loving beings. So again, head over to LoriSpagna.com. Under the live events tab, you'll see the speed activations link there, and you will be able to join us. It's on 7/7/7, July 7th, 2023. And that's a Friday, and it is in an evening. And of course, it is always recorded. So even if you're not available for the live call, we get a lot of people who aren't able to show up for the live call, and then they listen to the recording later. The energy that we're working for is never limited to time or space. So it's just as effective whenever you listen. And you do get the recording, so you can listen in your own convenience. And if there's so much in there, people tell me all the time that if they re-listen, they get all kinds of, new content that they didn't even hear the first time. So it's amazing, right? And I'm just so proud of these calls, and I love coming together with the sacred community and being, unifying, and the energy is so intensely beautiful and wonderful and joyful and really up-leveling for all of us. So I would love for you to join us. Again, I'll put the link next to this recording, and it's on July 7th. Register and join us before the rate goes up. I promise you, once the rate goes up, I cannot go back. It's more administrative work for me. So please register before the rate goes up. I keep it as low as I can. This call is way worth more than what I charge. It's worth so much more financially. It's a life-shifting, transformational experience, energy shifting, consciousness shifting, and it will also help your animals and your children without them even having to participate. We do that every time. There's a reason that more than 75% of the participants come back over and over and over again. It's that good. So I hope you will join us, LoriSpagna.com/events/speed-activations. It's under the live events tab where you can register. And I will see you there. And in the meantime, enjoy this window. It's going to be a really nice window of time for us, of elevated consciousness and expansion of the light. And the more we work with the light, the more grace, the more ease, the more benevolence we experience through these challenging times when the intensifications take place. So, okay, with that, I'm going to sign off because there's always more. There's always more to share, and there's always more to learn and expand into. So we will do that at the next 777 triple Stargate portal speed activations /DNA activations, sacred key code, star code marking activations webinar. Please join us, and I will see you then. Until then, I'm signing off for now. Lots of love to you. Farewell for now. Bye-bye.